Hi, Joseph Marziliano here. I'm a sculptor, a 3D scanner, a digital modeler, a 3D printer, and a model painter. And today I'm coming to you for the exciting conclusion of my 3-character first contact model kit. It's the first model kit that I've ever made from scratch myself. In the last series of videos, I've sculpted them traditionally in clay, then 3D scanned them, 3D printed them, and painted them with acrylic paints. So in this final video, I'm going to take the terrain diorama that I built from scratch and painted in the last video and mount all of these characters together for display and to get some really nice beauty shots. So without any further delay, let's get going finishing up this model kit. For me, this piece is such a triumph of effort and divergence of variation and settling on so many different kinds of designs and features that I wanted for each particular character. You'll notice that so much of the anatomy on each of the human characters is pushed to give more of an emotional feel, that the costumes themselves, what they lack in a basis in historical reality, they give off a kind of 1950s pulp sci-fi fantasy feeling, something like Tales from the Savage Lands or Creepy Magazine. I really love those old pulp comics, and I grew up reading them, those short stories, and Frank Frazetta work, as well as Robert E. Howard short stories were always my favorite growing up. You'll see here the turnarounds of the final models after we 3D printed and painted them. And the last thing finally here to do is just to review quickly the terrain sculpture base itself. The terrain base started out as many cuts and scrapings of pink insulation foam that were glued back together in hexagonal shape to create our base, and then pieces of it were glued back together and painted with earth tones and LED lighting. A big reason why the characters are so vibrantly colored was not just to give them that comic book feel, but also to maintain as much saturation as possible, considering that they're going to be lit in very low lighting with the LED light, which you'll see coming up. For me, this part of the process is so celebratory. There's nothing to do here but make compositional choices in where I'm going to put the characters in this environment. I really like the idea of having the alien face to face with the female character close, and having the male character who's more terrified further away. I also like the symbolism of having the alien himself near the entrance, or rather the exit of the cave, giving off a kind of metaphor that as you leave the sort of cave of primordial ignorance, the way through that is the sort of enlightenment of this contact with this being from another world. The female character, I gave her 2 metaphorical props. One is the corn, which is obviously a symbol for agriculture, in her right hand, and in her left hand a torch, which is a pretty on-the-nose symbol for enlightenment, learning, understanding. And with those 2 characters right there, this alone for me made it all worth it. This is a dream come true. And adding the ignorant side of humanity, that duality, is also something that I really strived for. Making sure that the rock that he's sitting on is the same exact color paint match as the surrounding base was something that I pre-planned, making sure to remember the recipe. I thought that the male figure could use a few little touches to finish him up, and one of them that I imagined was, based on his body language, it could make sense that he maybe dropped an object, and I happen to have had these sculptural looking beads from a bracelet that I had bought for detailing work at Michael's years ago and have never used them, so I split one of those in half and decided to put it at his feet, almost to imply that in his shock and terror that he may have dropped something that was made of clay and painted, something that might have been artistic or meaningful to him, kind of implying that ignorance will lead to some sort of destruction or misunderstanding. I'm really happy with the way that this entire model kit came out and the way that the process ran. If you have any suggestions or subject matter that you'd like to see me work on in the future, or even some sort of fan art, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. With that, we get to do my favorite part of this entire process, and that is to roll the beauty shots of this piece in full lighting. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating.